Ms. Zory? She did get a.
She got it. I gave her an invite.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call our meeting to order. And this is our regular meeting, October 18th, the Orono Town Council. We are still having hybrid meetings, so joining us in council chambers are Councilor Robertson, Councilor Grenier, Councilor Wingard, Councilor Perry, and Councilor Mitchell is going to be joining us shortly. Just a couple of reminders, we are not using the chat function. So that is turned off, and we will use the raised hand function when we get to an appropriate place of orders, if anybody on the panel wishes to comment on them. So moving on, we have agenda review. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes of September 13th. I'd like a motion to approve, please.
Move approval.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any additions, corrections on the minutes? Seeing none. Nancy, will do a roll call vote on the minutes, please.
Councilor Perry,
Approve.
Councilor Gardner,
Councilor Gardner can't hear you.
Sorry, I can now. I think it was the screen sharing that was making that impossible. In favor.
Councilor Osher,
In favor?
Councilor Robertson,
In favor.
Councilor Grenier,
In favor.
Councilor Wingard,
In favor.
and Councilor Mitchell with us. So 6 in favor, and there are none opposed.
Thank you, Nancy. There. So moving on to public hearings, you have a number of public hearings this afternoon. Public hearing A, to consider a victualist license for the following businesses: Max Convenience Stores LLC, doing business as Circle K, number 7085, 53 Main Street. Max Convenience Store LLC, DBA Circle K, number 7021, doing business at 2 Stillwater Avenue. Brewers of the North, doing business at the Roma Joe's, 99 Park Street. Big Shoe Incorporated, doing business at Subway, 53 Main Street. And Big Shoe Incorporated, doing business at Subway, 10 Stillwater Avenue. So, do you have any comments from our code enforcement officer, Mr. Esty?
Hi, this is Pat Esty, Code Enforcement Officer. I just want to make aware that other staff I'm representing, police, fire, and town clerk for all these licenses. We are asking for a conditional approval. There was a little mishap with just the payment and the process of the fee, and the check is in the mail. So we are just asking for a conditional license.
Any comments for or against the issuing of these licenses? None. So I'll close public hearing A and move on to public hearing B, to consider a Class 1 malt spiritus vinous liquor license and victualist license for S&M Corporation, doing business as Thai Orchid, 28 Main Street.
We are asking for a conditional license due to cleaning out the grease trap and some other housekeeping in the kitchen. So I've given them 30 days to complete that. So I'm asking for a conditional license.
Thank you, Patrick. And I will just mention that the motions in the consent agenda all reflect the conditions that our code enforcement officer is referring to. Moving on to public hearing. So any comments for or against this license on the Thai Orchid? Seeing none, I'll close public hearing B, move on to public hearing C, to consider a Class 1 malt spiritus vinous liquor license, special amusement permit for music, dancing, entertainment, and victualist license, but to the University of Maine, doing business as Collins Center for the Art, 5746 Collins Center.
Staff has completed their inspections and is asking for approval.
Any comments for or against this license? None. We'll close that public hearing and move on to public hearing D, to consider a Class 1 golf club, spiritus, vinous, and malt liquor license, special amusement permit for music, dancing, and entertainment, victualer's license, and auxiliary license for a mobile service park of Penobscot Valley LLC, doing business at Penobscot Valley Country Club, 366 Main Street, Orono.
Staff has completed all inspections and is asking for a conditional license. We're waiting on payment for sewer and property tax.
Thank you. Any comments for or against the issuing of this license? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and move on to public hearing E, to consider an ordinance amendment to the Town of Orono Ordinances, Chapter 18, Land Use, Section 18-152, Mobile Home Vendors, to amend the permitting process for mobile home vendors operating at the University District. And that is going to be Kyle.
Hi, everyone. Kyle Drexler, Town Planner. So we've talked about this ordinance amendment before. This is the public hearing. I'll just give a brief recap. This was primarily introduced to treat food trucks and other similar mobile food vendors on the university campus, similar to how we treat other similar uses on the campus, like retail businesses and restaurants, where although some of those uses require site plan review and other zoning districts on town, when they're sort of self-contained on the campus, that they can operate based on a permit through the code officer instead. So this would bring kind of frequently operating mobile food vendors into that same category. They would still have to abide by all of the standards that other mobile food vendors have to operate by. It would just make the permitting process a little smoother when the university wants to bring in a lot of food trucks at one time for an event or sort of several weeks of activity.
Thank you. Any comments for or against the amendment that is being presented? It was discussed thoroughly at the workshops. I see none. We'll close public hearing E and move on to public hearing F, to consider a contract zone agreement for 163 Forest Avenue to change the zone of the lot from low-density residential to economic development zone to allow for a medical office, counseling office within the existing structure on the lot.
So again, we've been over this one several times. This contract zone agreement is for the lot on Forest Ave, just past the interstate across from the Kiwanis property. The owners of the lot are hoping to operate under our land use ordinance, it would be considered a medical office, but really it's a small scale counseling office. This contract zone agreement went through planning board public hearing and received recommendation through there, as well as received a few minor public comments that were addressed at that meeting, just to clarify a few things. The conditions put in place would limit the scale of the business, both in square footage of the actual operating business, as well as number of parking spaces, to sort of keep the business in the same sort of character and scale as the existing surrounding low-density residential neighborhood. Although the use of a medical office is not currently allowed in the low-density district, the scale of what the applicant was looking to do fits in well with the kind of character of that area. And with the sort of existing natural vegetated buffers and the existing conditions with the interstate on the right of the south side of the property, there should be very little potential conflict with any surrounding properties or any potential nuisances with lighting or noise generated from the business. So at this point, the public hearing process for the council. It's really the last needed step before adoption of the agreement.
Thank you. Any comments for or against this item? Again, something that's been discussed thoroughly at committee meeting. Public hearings have been held. If there are no comments for or against, I will close public hearing F. Move on to unfinished business, which we have none. And then the consent agenda. I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Move approval.
And a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I would like to just outline or comment on a couple of items on the agenda. We have an order setting the hours of voting from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the polling places, University of Maine New Balance Fieldhouse, for Ward 1, Precincts 1, 2, and 3 for November 2nd, 2002. We have an order changing the hours of the registrar will accept registration for application for applicants who appear in person as follows: on the last 5 days during normal business hours before the November 2nd, 2021 state referendum election. That's Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Okay. We're ready for vote on the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, can we clarify what happens if somebody needs to request an absentee ballot on Friday outside of normal office hour?
So on Friday, they would be subject to having to have a reason that meets statutory effort anyway. We would get the message, barring somebody coming in and doing something, which has been known to happen, but I wouldn't promise. They would end up with an absentee ballot available to them on Monday if they meet the statutory requirements.
Okay, so it doesn't preclude anybody from accessing the vote.
No, so maybe,
So you were speaking to the last Friday before the election, were you not?
yes.
And I think you might have been
Oh,
asking about Fridays in general.
Yes.
Oh, so Fridays in general, so that's a weekend. Somebody wants to vote, they can still put their ballot request in the box. We've got a special box set up for that. They can request it via email, and most of the time people want us to ship it out to them by mail. We are cautioning people that mail is slow, and once we issue, we can't really unissue. So we would encourage people to come pick them up for, especially as we get close to election day.
Ready to vote on the consent agenda? Nancy, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Perry,
In favor?
Counselor Gardner,
In favor?
Counselor Osher,
In favor?
Counselor Robertson,
In favor.
Counselor Grenier,
In favor?
Counselor Wingard,
In favor.
Counselor Mitchell.
Yes.
And the vote is 7 in favor and there are none opposed.
Thank you, Nancy. Ready to move on to new business. Under new business, order 21-197. Order authorizing the town manager to execute an agreement with the University of Maine Department of Industrial Cooperation to accept and place equipment described as Sun Rule Webster Park sculpture in Webster Park. And I think this is Mitch's item.
Good evening, Mitch Stone, Director of Community and Economic Development. So 2 weeks ago, I came before you with a mysterious request of putting in a foundation that created a lot of buzz. So luckily, and I'm happy to say that we were able to pull everything together to be able to come in front of you today without having anything else that has happened. So we are looking to, I kind of just want to set this up. I have Eric and Justin and also Renee from the university. They're going to talk a little bit about the Sun Rule, but I wanted to start by saying one of the things that is really interesting about this project in general is that it does kind of really well define and outline our partnership with the university and the Foster Center for Innovation on how we can move through projects and see them from start to finish. I'm really excited because I think this is a really cool project, and I also think the idea is unique, like Orono is unique, and it offers us an opportunity to have something that no one else has. So for me, I think this is it's an exciting moment because I know that it's been a long time. I think that Lori had asked me how long I had been working on this, and I said, I'm really not sure because of COVID. I went back and I looked, and it's been about 1.5 years that I've been working with Justin and Eric on this, and Renee. So I'm going to turn it over to Renee a little bit to talk about the partnership, and then I think Eric and Justin are going to describe what this thing is that everybody's been waiting to hear about. So go ahead, Renee.
Thanks, Mitch, and thank you to the council members for giving us this opportunity to tell you a little bit about this project. And before I even jump into that, I just want to thank the town of Orono for its partnership with the university and supporting our economic development projects, going way back to the creation of what is now the Upstart Center for Entrepreneurship based in the Tech Park in Orono. We've been supporting and growing new companies spinning off from the university and attracting companies to this region based on the assets of the university, and having that center in place and the ongoing work that we've done with the town to support it has been a really important element of our economic development work. So I just wanted to start there with that. Thank you. And then I think this opportunity is an example of how we can take that partnership to the next level. The team you'll hear from tonight, Justin and Eric, were part of the 4th cohort of a program that the university started in 2018 to accelerate research projects and innovations developed at the university into the world, into the real world. We call this program the MIRTA program. And we take 4 teams of faculty, staff, and students over a 4 to 6 month period and really sort of put them through their paces to test the opportunity that is available to the innovations that they have developed. And this has led to the creation of 7 startups in the local region. So that's very exciting. And we're excited about this particular project as well. This project really started in a very different place, and Justin and Eric will tell you about that. But one of the things that we try to do during the MIRTA Accelerator is not only go out and sort of test the market, who's interested in this innovation, how might we prototype and test it, what are the partnerships we need to bring it to life. We go all through those things in a very accelerated way over the time period that they're participating in MIRTA. And oftentimes one of the outcomes is to figure out how to demonstrate, prototype and demonstrate the innovation in the real world. And that's really what we're doing with this project with Webster Park. The team has created a prototype of their innovation, and this opportunity would give them the chance to have a visible demonstration of their prototype that the users of the prototype, and I'm trying to be vague about it so they can really tell you the ins and outs of what the innovation actually is, but we'll give them the opportunity to observe students and families interacting with the prototype, and it will also provide them the opportunity to bring in future partners who might want to have a similar innovation located in their facilities or communities. So we're really excited, and again, thank Mitch for his support and guidance over the 18 months he's been working on this project. Mitch, would you like me to introduce Justin and Eric? All right. So up next will be Justin Dimmel and Eric Pindicio from the Sun Rule team, as we call them. And they'll tell you a little bit about how they got started with this project and the opportunity around the Webster Park installation.
Thank you, Renee, and thank you, Mitch, and thank you to the town council for making some time for us to present our idea to you this evening. So is it okay now if I share my screen? I do have a short slide deck that would help as I talk through this. Okay. Okay, so I'm Justin Dimmel. I'm a mathematics teacher educator in the School of Learning and Teaching at the University of Maine. And I'm joined by my colleague Eric Pendicio, who is also a mathematics teacher educator in the School of Learning and Teaching at the University of Maine. And as mathematics teacher educators, we're really concerned about math education, the learning of mathematics. How do we engage people with mathematics? In my background, I have years of experience working in adventure-based schools, where part of the work that we were trying to do is to find ways to connect mathematics and science to the real world and to get students outside. And the reasons that people are concerned about this is that, as many of you probably know, mathematics is often a gatekeeper to lucrative careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And yet, you can ask pretty much any math teacher at any level, stoking and maintaining student interest in mathematics and helping students understand that learning mathematics is more than just like, taking medicine that you're not interested in. It can be kind of vitally important to your current and future economic potential. And so how do we help students get excited about mathematics? And beyond students, if you think about the public at large, as someone that kind of identifies as a math person, I hear from people every day, if they find out that I'm interested in mathematics, I hear about the challenges that they had learning mathematics in school, or the way that they were turned off from learning mathematics. And so we have this kind of public aversion to mathematics, and all of this is a concern to Eric and me, and we want to try to find ways to help connect the learning of mathematics to kind of positive experiences. And so as Renee and Mitch said, this is sort of the beginning. So Eric and I have this idea. We'll spare you the full academic backstory, but we have several papers that we've written about different ways of representing multiplication and division, using at first diagrams, and then now we have this prototype of a device. And this does not probably look very impressive. This is a prototype that a woodworker friend of mine built. But this is the device that we call a sun rule. And the way that it works, it multiplies by stretching or shrinking shadows. So you can kind of tilt that board on the sawhorse, and when you tilt it away from the sun, it stretches the shadows. When you tilt it toward the sun, it shrinks the shadows. And then you can make sense of what's happening by the lengths of the shadows and the rods that are sticking up. If people are really interested in the mathematics of this device, Eric and I are happy, we can talk for hours about this. But I think in the interest of time, we wanted to show this picture as like a way of owning the sort of humble beginnings of this project. And so then as Renee mentioned, Eric and I have been part of, she mentioned the MURTA program, but even prior to MURTA, we were involved in a program called I-Core, which is an innovation core program. And as part of that work, you as an inventor have to learn what people in the world might actually want to do with your invention, right? So you have this great idea, you're very excited about it. And often what happens is people try to bring their idea out into the world, and they realize the world isn't actually interested in that idea. And so part of the work of the I-Core program is customer discovery, talking to people that might actually benefit from what you have innovated. And as part of that, our advisors, who were Renee and Vina Dinesh at the time, suggested that we reach out to people that were involved in public lands, people that had some kind of interest or access to public land, because maybe we could have versions of this in public places. It was a very vague idea. And so I fired off this email to Mitch, and I actually went back and found the email, because it was just this cold call email, right? Like shot in the dark at 7:23 in the morning. And then at 7:32, Mitch responds, "This sounds cool. Let's see if we can meet and talk this out." And it was just amazing, because we really did not have a clear vision of where we are. And now this is, not quite a year later, we have this very specific, concrete plan that we're excited to share with you. And so this is sort of the version of the device that has come from months of work with people like Mitch, people like Renee, Vina, other members of the MURTA team, and in particular, Gregory Ondo, and Samuel Hoey, who are sculptors at the University of Maine. And so over time, as Renee mentioned, going through this Innovation Core program, having meetings with Mitch, who's on our advisory board, we finally connected with Greg and Sam. We showed them the sawhorse, and we sort of started sharing them this vision that we would like a version of this to be sort of like an inviting, public, interactive thing where people can be out, it can catch their eye, they can want to go over to it, and they can investigate it. And so the way this version of the device works, you can turn that disc, and when you turn that disc, that has the effect of varying the numbers that you're multiplying, and then you can tilt that disc, and when you tilt the disc, that changes the factor that you're multiplying by. And so we took that linear kind of very bare bones prototype sawhorse idea, and in consultation with Greg, Sam, Mitch was a big part of actually just helping us keep in mind what is realistic for this public mathematical thing. Like, what is the public actually going to want to be interested in? This new design is a 24-inch bronze disc that sits atop a 30-inch granite plinth. And this photo isn't exactly what the plinth is going to look like. It's pretty close to what the disc is going to look like. The plinth has undergone several iterations since, and it's a more aesthetically striking shape now. It has this kind of really evocative, almost like teardrop looking profile. It's really beautiful. There's versions of it at the University of Maine that people can investigate if they want to know more about what the new version of the plinth will look like. And so again, the team was me, Eric, an undergraduate named Emma Reedman, and then Greg and Sam from Sculpture, the Foster Center for Student Innovation. And then working with Mitch in the town of Orono, we worked with the Maine Discovery Museum, and we're working with Vogue Boxes. So as Renee mentioned, this is, we're trying to create something really interesting that celebrates all of the rich resources we have locally available to do exciting and unique work that we think really captures the spirit of the land grant mission for the University of Maine. I know for Eric and I both, that obligation to invest in the community, to give back to the community, to be sort of a destination where people regionally, locally, statewide can be excited about what's happening at the University of Maine. And so, we see this fitting into not only our research program moving forward, where we want to understand how interactions with this kind of unique sculpture that blends math and art just affects the way people think about mathematics. Is this a chance for people to have a positive experience with something mathematical? Think about what happened during COVID with people being, stuck inside all day, and how are children learning mathematics on screens? And here's an opportunity to get them out in the sun, interacting with the real physical thing. So Eric and I are really excited about this, and we're very grateful to Mitch for just the tremendous amount of support that he has provided. And we're excited to share this with everyone in the town of Orono. And so I think we're happy to answer questions. I don't know if people would like me to continue sharing my screen so we can keep seeing the image of it. I'm happy to follow whatever direction people like. And Eric or Renee, if you have anything else to add, I guess I'd like to hear from you too.
Thanks, Justin, for that sort of introduction to the Sun Rule. The only piece I'd like to add is about Mitch's enthusiasm, which comes across in that email that people probably couldn't read, but that continued with all our meetings. And in particular, when we first met with Mitch, we had this idea of, well, maybe we could put something in a school playground or one of the playgrounds that is the town playground near the school. And we just started talking about, is that the best place? And Mitch was like, well, there are these public art installations, there are other opportunities within the town of Orono you might want to consider. And then also the notion of what we should think about in terms of a design. And I don't know if you could recall that other one with the lever and the two rods sticking up had a lot of potential safety issues associated with it that are no longer part of the device. And some of that was our own sort of realization, but sort of Mitch helped us think through stuff like that, as did our sculptor partners at the university. And so just, I mean, I've said it to him, but publicly I want to thank Mitch for his support in this project.
Hear, hear.
And I would just, add again that this is a demonstration of what we hope will be many variations on this theme, installation around the country, around the world potentially, and a great way to showcase what was born in the town of Orono.
Thank you. Questions from council members?
I just think it looks like an amazing piece of art just in itself. I was excited about this. I know that sometimes people in community can kind of jump to a conclusion, and thank you, Sophie, for setting some citizens straight. This wasn't going to be a 20-mile-long thing. But thank you so much. I think this is a key thing to continue having the interactions with the university and working together. And I can just look at this and see the kids just loving to play with this.
I'd like to also say thank you for this, because this is so refreshing after a year and a half of just the COVID and just being battered. And this is such a great, it's such a great addition. I have a question. Have you put this through a wind tunnel yet?
That is a great question. So we have not subjected it to, kind of industrial shearing forces. However, Greg and Sam have a lot of experience with public art. And so that was, I think Eric mentioned this and Mitch too, Eric and I, we're math people. And so we have this kind of mathematical ideal of what we want, but Greg and Sam understand about aesthetics, beauty, but durability. And so we have their, decades of experience with these kinds of installations that they designed it so that it would hold up, so that it would withstand, curiosity, children playing with it, Maine winters. That has been very much a part of what we have been concerned about in coming up with this new design. So no wind tunnel testing, but we think it's going to be robust.
Awesome. And I love the word plinth.
Any other comments or questions for these folks?
I just want to thank you so much. Thank you, Mitch, and thank you, mathematicians and sculptors. And I'm so wonderful to hear that you received a quick response from Mitch. I wouldn't expect anything else, but it's very nice that you recognize the great staff we have here in Orono.
Laurie. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. We're very excited to see it and see people using it. Anything else on this item?
So the presentation is wonderful, and I'm excited. I was excited to see. That was the first time I actually got sketches, but not to see it. I think it's important just to understand that the order that is before you is to authorize me to execute an agreement with the University of Maine. Under that agreement, the university transfers ownership of the sculpture, and we are agreeing, if they ask for it back, we will give it back. They are agreeing that if we decide we don't want it for whatever reason or no reason at all, they will take it back. This is a pretty low threshold deal. And to put the size in perspective, we're looking at a base of between 3 and 5 feet square. I mean, so this is not a huge item, and it is art which is allowed under the deed restriction of Webster Park.
Ready for vote?
Yes.
Nancy, take roll call vote, please.
Council Perry,
In favor?
Council Gardner,
In favor, maybe I'll get better at math.
Council Osher,
In favor.
Council Robertson,
Yes, in
No.
favor.
Council Grenier,
In favor.
Council Wingard,
In favor.
and Council Mitchell.
Yes.
And the vote is 7 in favor and there are none opposed.
Thank you very much for the very informative presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we will move on to order 21-198. Order authorizing the purchase of a 2022 GMC Sierra 1500 from Barney GMC of Bangor, Maine, in the amount of $37,570 and an additional $2,430 for miscellaneous accessories for a total price of $40,000 to be drawn from the approved FY22 Fire Department capital budget. Yes, motion to approve, please.
Move approval.
And a second. Thank you.
Lurk-
Is this Chief Lowe or?
Yeah, lurking in the background of the panel, we should have a fire chief.
I think I'm here.
Yeah.
So this is just, this is the vehicle that we had talked about previously when we were going through the budget process. When we were looking to replace the deputy chief's vehicle first, which was actually removed from service and is currently, he's currently using a police cruiser to fulfill his need. I don't have much to say about the vehicle other than what has already been stated in the agenda. And I think we talked about it pretty thoroughly when we discussed it last year about the need for the vehicle and what its purpose was and the fact that it was dual purpose. But if the council has any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer whatever might be out there.
Any questions from council members on this item? We discussed it quite thoroughly and went through the bid process as we should, and this is the low bid, and it's within budget. That's all good. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll take a vote on this motion, please.
Council Perry,
In favor?
Council Gardner,
In favor?
Council Osher,
In favor.
Council Robertson,
In favor.
Council Grenier,
In favor.
Council Wingard,
In favor.
and Council Mitchell.
Yes.
And the vote is 7 in favor and there are none opposed.
Thank you, Nancy. So we're going to take a little bit of a different turn in our meeting format and move from that motion into a workshop. And I guess the workshop is going to be led by our town manager.
Thank you. I am saddened to announce that after 22 years of dedicated service to our community, Josh Ewing has resigned his position as police chief of the Orono Police Department, accepting a position as a patrol officer for the town of Hamden. After arriving in 1999, Josh demonstrated sharp technical skill and innate leadership ability as he quickly ascended the ranks of the department. In 2013, the decision to promote him to police chief was easy, as we shared the same vision for a highly skilled, compassionate police force that embraced public safety and service through a vibrant community policing model. Over the last 8 years, I have been honored with a front row seat as Chief Ewing molded a very good police department into a superior law enforcement agency. The agency he built models the tenets of community policing, focusing on creating positive interactions with the community to nurture partnerships aimed at solving problems. He worked tirelessly to assemble a highly skilled team that understands and is committed to the mission and embraces accountability that this system demands. As host to the University of Maine's flagship campus, Orono has always posed unique challenges for law enforcement, but also the opportunity to embark on more progressive operational approaches than other agencies. We've long been leaders in implementation of best practices, training to ensure excellence in operations, and development of systems aimed at evaluating personnel and performance. Under Chief Ewing's leadership, those efforts have become an integral part of the vision and mission of the police department. His compassion, integrity, and humility have been contagious, creating an environment where staff flourished as they were provided a safe place to grow. He has nurtured positive and productive partnerships with community stakeholders and aimed at solving problems. Through his tenure, Chief Ewing has been a consummate leader, a tireless advocate for his people and our community. I have watched him push traditional law enforcement tactical values and culture through a lens that prioritizes community-oriented conflict resolution. His department has exceptionally high standards of openness, accepting input of all kinds, complaints, concerns, issues, and ideas as avenues to learn, grow, solve problems, and strengthen the community relationship. Change is a given in the work that we do. As municipal leaders, we expect priorities to change. We've built systems to manage these shifting expectations in ways that minimize stress to our operations and respond fluidly to meet the desired change. The community of Orono has always been socially aware and clear in its desire for high-quality services built upon best practices and demonstrated care for the community. It is one of the factors that attract our talented personnel to our ranks. Recently, we've experienced an abrupt shift from priorities focused on local needs and issues to those focused on global issues and activism. Generally, national events and calls for global system change create a litany of best practices and case studies for staff and elected officials to examine and perhaps adopt as part of our local policy through deliberate system of review. The current climate, however, circumvents that system and fails to consider the current state of local operations. Being a police chief isn't easy on a good day, though the satisfaction of shaping a department into a responsible team makes it worth it for the right person. But it quickly becomes unfulfilling to lead in a community that is demanding unquantified change and reform of a department that is already an industry leader. The department has articulated goals that are entrenched within the organization's existing core mission and values, with a focus on protecting against race-based policing and engaging diverse members of our community. We have truly been living the community policing model for years. This department understands that there will always be room for improvement and growth, but when the extraordinary effort and achievement of this department are summarily and routinely dismissed, the personal satisfaction that drives any professional simply evaporates and the job is no longer a good fit. I know that Chief Ewing's decision to depart was difficult for him. He cares deeply for his people, members of the management team, and this community. As we look forward, it is clear he has given us a strong foundation from which to build the next chapter of the Orono Police Department. My first priority is to ensure stability of our public safety response services. As the fishbowl that municipal employees live within has increasingly become a microscope trained on our public safety staff, we are experiencing a turnover of highly skilled staff with very small, often unqualified candidate pools from which to draw replacements. Evaluating my team, I would prefer not to affect major change within the police department. While any new leadership will bring new perspectives, the vision, values, mission, management style, and remaining personnel are exactly on point for our community. But looking at our existing staff and the climate in which they are working, restructuring the management of the police and fire departments into a single public safety framework will enhance our strengths and support our current vulnerabilities. I realize the structure has been tried in Orono in the past and didn't meet with great success. However, the people and the community climate have changed. Appointing a public safety director will allow us to build systems to stabilize operations, ensure long-term succession, and develop more formally articulated strategic plans. The team needs to fully understand the town council's long-term vision for public safety. Our deputy chiefs in police and fire will be focused on day-to-day operations of their respective departments under the direction of a public safety director and town manager. It is not clear whether this restructuring will be temporary until organizational systems are built and personnel are ready to assume more responsibility, or if this structure will shift and will remain, or if this structural shift will remain necessary to afford a greater buffer between operations and policy development. We do know that our first responders, both in police and fire, are top-notch professionals, and that right now they need strong leadership that will mute policy-making noise and allow them to focus on operations in a safe and supportive environment. When we talk about restructuring of the public safety department, I am looking at taking our current fire chief and creating a public safety director. We would promote an individual into the director, the deputy police position, and a captain would serve under that person. To the outside world, I think many things would remain the same, but internally, your deputy chief would not handle the higher management responsibilities. So budgeting, planning would be done with the deputy, but ultimately the responsibility of the public safety director. Personnel management that is currently undertaken by the two chiefs would be overseen by the public safety director and by me, as we have for some time. I don't know how much information council needs about this restructuring. Ultimately, as I outlined for council in background material, the restructuring can't happen without some budget adjustments. I'm prepared to go as detailed as you need or stay as quick as you would like.
Questions or comments from council members?
I think the background information that you gave us, Sophie, was sufficient enough for me. Oh, I forgot. Forget about these things. The background information that I read and that I think that it was clear, it was detailed, and that's sufficient enough for me to approve this change or restructure.
I see a different problem here. I don't know how you didn't break down. Really? I'm sick about this. And I think that, yes, my thoughts always within council is always public safety does get a bad rap continually. And it's sad because we lose people like the chief that's, my gosh, does so much for this community. And now we've got to restructure everything. And and even with the budget ends up higher, I'm not going to nitpick it. The town put our chief in this position. The town's got to kind of deal with this. But yeah, I want chief to know that I'm sick. So I will do whatever we need to get through this, and I wish him the best, and Hammond's going to love him.
Yeah, to kind of follow up on what Terry just said. I mean, I had in addition to the background materials, I had the benefit of, talking to Sophie a bit about the restructuring plan and hearing about how it might work. And I think one of the things that is really important to consider, I mean, the plan makes sense logically, but I think it's also important for morale for our public safety folks that they have, a leadership plan that's supportive and that, comprised of people who know them and know the work that they do. I think that public safety in this town has, I mean, particularly the police department, has really taken a beating in the last, 2 years that has been frustrating. It's been frustrating. I'll be very honest. I mean, we're not partisan on council, and I'm not going to get into party politics, but I would say to a lot of the people in our community who consider themselves activists and consider themselves, engaged in this fight, I want to say I'm in that fight with you, and I understand why everyone across the country is really on fire about this issue. But at the same time, it's been so frustrating to sit here and have all of this heat from the public that is vague about how it impacts our police department. Our police department, I'm not going to sit here and say that anyone's police department is perfect. The culture of policing in this country needs a reckoning, but our police department is leagues ahead of any in the state, the region. I would say that we probably have one of the best, most compassionate, most progressive police chiefs in this state. And this culture and this climate that's going on right now with people who are really upset, justifiably upset with what's going on in the country, but with nowhere to direct that ire other than the police officers right in front of them in their town. I mean, our community is losing someone who is doing the things and is committed to the mission that our residents want. And it's so frustrating. And I don't begrudge Chief Ewing for doing what he's doing now. You know, he's a human being, and I think that he needs to make a decision that's right for his life. But I really want to draw a line under the fact to the community. And again, to all of the community members really engaged in this social justice issue, I am with you, but I think that this community has made a big mistake. And I think that this plan to restructure public safety is an excellent one to kind of triage what's going on, but it's unfortunate that it's gotten here. And, you know, lastly, I want to thank the chief for all the years of service to this community. I remember when he was a patrol officer back in the ye old days when I was a bartender, and I've seen him in action. You know, up until just a month ago, I was fortunate to see him in action with a community member who was in crisis, and you could not have asked for a more compassionate response from a law enforcement officer. And you know, this is a real blow to the community. And I'm confident in our public safety personnel and the leadership team that's going to be assembled from this restructuring, that they will carry on and continue the mission that Chief Ewing has been working on all these years. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. Other comments, questions?
I would first like to echo the sentiments about the professionalism and vision that Chief Ewing has brought to the job. But I'd like to also commend our town manager for working not only with the leadership team, but communicating with the rank and file in public safety. So I think it's really important that as we go forward with these structural changes, that the people that are doing the job also feel comfortable with that. So I think that's been a huge part of this vision. It's not just a vision that affects the top tier, but it affects everybody in the service, right, in the agencies. So that was very reassuring to me as we talked about and learned about some of these changes, that this just wasn't something that's happening at a higher level, but that other people were being brought up with. So thank you.
I would just add that we're very sad to see Chief Ewing make this decision, and career decisions are difficult and the environment has been challenging, and it's a big loss, clearly. And with the information that you sent, I'm comfortable with the restructuring, and I think that we'll move forward and do what we need to do.
Anything else from council members on this item?
Yes, I want to thank Chief Ewing for his service, and I feel so privileged that he chose to stay, because it's a very stressful job to be a police officer and in public service, and that is why their retirement packages are designed so that when they reach a certain number of years or a certain age, that they're assumed that they might decide to take a break from such a stressful job. And so I know that he's been here years longer than that time. He reached that time from his excellent service for us. And he doesn't look his age, but we really feel lucky. I feel lucky that he's served longer than the design of his job. And And I'm glad that for Hamden that they get to have him work for them. And we'll miss him. But our job here is to look at the restructuring, and in the description of the restructuring, one of the comments was how we have open positions already. And so my concern is, and I think that the restructuring, one of the ways that it looks like you're going to address that is to make the open positions at the lowest, at the entry level now, so that people will move up. You'll get an advisor to help make that transition, and that then we'd have entry level positions. And we've just renegotiated a contract, so those salaries are set. But there, you wrote in the comments about this restructuring that we, Orono, don't pay as much as other places, and that may be one reason that we're losing out if there are people available for the work. All over the country, there's not people applying for jobs. So what we're experiencing here is no different. There's a lot of concern and stress about what people are doing with their lives and if they're happy about that because of all of us experiencing this crisis of the pandemic. So I think it's a great effort to win the restructuring, but what I haven't heard is if there's any thoughts on how this might help us bring in more people to apply for the jobs, and with the understanding that we'll be in the same situation where we have to send them to police academy or to give them a significant amount of training. So that, I guess, and this is not against the restructuring, but you pointed about some general things. I was hoping to get a little bit more specifics.
Thank you, Laura.
The restructuring allows us to maintain stability, which is really important when you're trying to recruit people. Our contract is up for renegotiation, which is why we're so far behind, because everybody else, we're a year ahead of everybody. But in the memo, I spoke about competitive disadvantage being both the wages and the current climate. And if you think about law enforcement, there is a very small pool of applicants that want to be police officers right now. And then you look at the state of Maine, if they want to be in the state of Maine, which is not always easy to find people in the state of Maine. They want to come to the state of Maine, and now we're asking them to come to northern Maine, which is a different environment. We're competing against the sheriff and the state police, which are different environments. And so when I look at the 4 regional police departments that are similar, Orono, Old Town, Hamden, and Brewer, I look at how we compare there. And I don't think restructuring is going to make or break recruiting. I think recruiting is really hard. And quite honestly, Chief Ewing was a little bit of a secret weapon with that. He taught at different classes and would engage young folks to come in. And we're going to have to find another secret weapon. There will be another secret weapon. We will find people to police. I am just suggesting that we're trying right now to just remove barriers at this point. I don't have a magic wand that I can wave and suddenly have a cadre of qualified applicants. And the applicants that we do get are likely not going to be groupings. They are likely going to have to wait, and we're going to have to pay them to wait to go to the police academy. I don't know, did I answer the question?
Yeah, well, I guess I love that the comment that he's a secret weapon. I did once meet one of our officers, and she said that he had been her teacher and encouraged her to apply. So that is great to have someone who interacts with students that might be interested in a future in law enforcement. So I guess the other is, you did mention in the memo the concern that we have so many people in public safety working overtime because of the empty unfilled jobs. And so that my concern is still for them. And it doesn't seem like that the reorganization, my concern would be the reorganization makes people have to take more shifts.
So this reorganization isn't going to happen all at once. It can't. Josh is leaving. His last day is November 5th. So we're going to have to make some management decisions, and I have to, by statute, have a chief law enforcement officer. So we will name the successors there. As I explained to you, we're also looking at some succession planning in the fire department in order to support this working. The changes in field response, meaning patrol and the crew shifts for the fire department, I am not anticipating making major changes there until we fill some key vacancies. Maybe not all of them, because we often work a little bit down, but at least some key ones.
I think it's safe to say that filling those vacancies is certainly a priority for our town manager and our public safety director and deputies that we work with. Any other questions or comments? I'd like to thank you, Sophie, for knowing your staff so well, to be able to put together a plan to move us forward, creates the stability that we all support of, and goes in a very positive direction. We ready to move out of this workshop and on to the next order? Okay, let's move to order 21-199. Order authorizing the town manager to adjust the approved FY 2022 municipal budget as follows. Reallocate $22,840 from the overlay account to increase police department operating budget by $7,690 and fire department operating budget by $14,790 for wages and benefit increases, and authorize the town manager to appropriate and expend up to $53,500 from the Envision Net Tax Increment Financing District Program Development Fund for business development staff. Motion on that, please.
Approval.
And a second. Second. Sophie.
So council holds the purse strings. So anytime I know I'm going to need more money, I have to come back to you. We can't go out and get new money, so that involves having to reallocate current budget. When we look at the police department and the fire department under this new operational model, there's a total of the $22,480 increase to both departments. This does not address the shortfall in the fire department that we know is coming for
Right.
overtime expense. I am leaving that as a separate issue. So the first item 1 under this order simply reallocates money that is currently budgeted in overlay to police and fire.
So it's clearly not new money. It's already in the budget, just being directed to different areas.
Exactly. The second one, in order to make this reorganization work, we're really changing the nature of the deputy fire chief. And we are looking to shuffle some personnel around to be able to do that. We are accelerating a plan that was already underway to move a person from the fire department in to do business development work. They will do code to support business development. They will do liaison work with the university around economic development. So this is an economic development position. Because it's an economic development position, we can use tax increment financing program development funds. Currently, the Envision Net TIF has a balance of $121,835, I think. I know it's 121,000, 835 is my. And I'm asking to use 53,000 of that to make sure that we have a budget to pay this person.
Questions or comments on that motion? Council first. Lori?
Yes, I always admire your management style that takes care of your employees. I think that's great that you have an employee in mind to shift over to work in business development. However, I also think that that is a profession that people get experience and work their way up in doing outreach to businesses, specifically for business development, or working with think tanks or incubators. And I'm just concerned that you're not announcing that as a job that people would apply for would basically keep people who had that experience that might be the very best person from the job from being able to apply for that job.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Are we ready to vote on this motion? Then Nancy, once again, we'll call on you.
Excuse me, Counselor Perry,
In favor?
Counselor Gardner,
In favor?
Counselor Osher,
I'm just going to abstain because I don't feel like I have enough information.
Counselor Robertson,
In favor.
Counselor Grenier,
In favor.
Counselor Wingard,
In favor.
Counselor Mitchell,
Yes.
and the vote is 6 in favor, 0 none opposed, and 1 extension.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, we're going to move on to acknowledgements. And for the first acknowledgement, I'm going to ask Chief Ewing if he'd come up here, please, and take this seat. I want to stay here for a little while. No way, fella. Josh, on behalf of the council, I'd like to acknowledge your 22 years of service, of outstanding service of the Orono Police Department, and especially the past 8 years that you served as police chief. Josh's outstanding leadership in the department and the impressive initiatives he has brought forward have made Orono a better community. We wish you well. In recognition of this service, the council is making a donation to a charity that I think you'll approve of. This check, or a real check, will be sent to Special Olympics under your name in recognition of your service over 22 years to the community of Warren. Thank you very much.
Can you turn it around?
Yes.
There we go. Okay, especially.
Thank you very much. That does have meaning for me. And Special Olympics will be very appreciated. And I as well. Very much.
Other acknowledgements.
Yes. I didn't acknowledge you in workshop, but I can acknowledge you publicly here.
You have taken that
Thank
off
you
if
so
you
much.
want.
Thank you, sir. I know. Can't wait to take them off permanently. But I do want to thank you, and I want to thank you for, and I've sent you an email already, but I wanted to say that you're leaving us with community policing. I'd love to see you. I'm an educator. I think you'd be wonderful to teach. Sophie says the next chapter. I'm thinking the next generation. I think that you need to go out there and teach those kids what you know and how you I'm also familiar with restorative justice as well. So I see community policing and restorative justice. And as a mom in this town, I know that community policing has helped us out a little bit too. So thank you for getting all of that together for us, and good luck. next endeavor.
Kind of pleasure. And maybe I'll just, as I heard someone else say about teaching Roy Watch people, I'll teach people one at a time.
Okay.
from now on.
Thanks, Cheryl. Other acknowledgements?
Yeah, said enough. I'm gonna miss you, and I'll probably swing by Hamden just to kind of check in, see how things are going. And I wish you the best.
Just don't speed through.
I was gonna say, Terry, don't like commit crimes in Hamden just to hang out with Josh.
Never here. On another note, I'm hoping I get the individual's name right. Is it Nora White was a state champion for running? I don't know if people had an opportunity to see the viral video of her at the PVC, what's it called? PVC. Penobscot Valley
League of Champions.
Champions, where no one was around, and she gave her award to a runner from Washington Academy that had his father as his guide. And I know it's gone viral, but I was just like, that was just something amazing. I think the community should be proud of having not only a world-class runner she's going to be, I'm sure, but still being so humble and such a great kid. So you see her around, give her a nice compliment.
Thank you. Other acknowledgements? Jeff?
Yeah, well, of course, I'd like to acknowledge Josh and the great service you've given. Over the years, I've got a chance to see you out of uniform at things like street cleanup and other community events, and that's been really nice. There are not a lot of law enforcement agencies whose personnel are always so comfortable just interacting with the community and being members of the community they serve. So we're going to miss that a lot. I've appreciated the feedback you've given over time and the help that you've given to structuring the agency to be one that works with our community members from young ages at school to helping the elders in our community. It's been really refreshing. It's been really nice. So that is it's been a huge job, and somebody will have big shoes to fill. So I thoroughly appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I think that if you were still in this profession, you'd be doing exactly the same way.
But I know how hard the job is. Yeah, you've done a fantastic job. Like Terry, I also have another acknowledgement, however. About 6 weeks ago, RSU 26 wrapped up the first part of their ongoing and incredible facilities renewal. And this week they wrapped up the second part with the opening of the new track. Both of those have significant community impacts outside of the RSU. And after speaking with a member of the RSU board, make sure that it was okay that we as a community acknowledge the efforts of the RSU, we thought that would be appropriate. And I want to encourage everybody in our community to take advantage of these great facilities and to know that the school is an economic development engine for our town, and it's a draw for our town, and we're really appreciative of that effort.
Well said. Thank you. Other acknowledgements?
I have another one.
Okay.
But if there's counselors that need.
I think,
to go first.
Laura was.
You're fine, yeah. Okay. So there were, this is like mute, unmute. There are also, you know, Orono has always been such a wonderful place to live and grow up and all that fun stuff. And I feel like we're coming back again after a couple of years. There's two people in Orono that are being recognized by the National Resources Council of Maine. One is Ivan Fernandez, who is being recognized as a leader in the Maine Climate Council, Maine Climate Action. And so I think that it's nice to acknowledge that we do have, they are 50% of the people that are being recognized at the National Resources Council are from Orono. And the second one is Mr. John Banks, and he's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award also from the National Resources Council. And I especially want to acknowledge him. because he's continuing his service. He's retiring, he's retired, and he's continuing his service to Orono as a board member on the Orono Land Trust. So he's continuing to steward the river, steward the land, as a retired resources director from the Penobscot Nation. So we have a bevy of people here in Orono that are working really hard and doing really good work for not just Orono, but the earth and the river. And I want to acknowledge those people.
Thank you, Cheryl. Laura?
I'm just gonna acknowledge Chief Ewing as well, and just thank you for your service. And I just think the safety and nature of this community, and probably my biggest exposure has been through the community policing department. And, you know, they knew my kids before I knew they were there. And for you to create that culture here will be missed. And it wasn't because my kids were arrested either.
I didn't hear that.
Any other acknowledgements? Okay. Well, thank you, Chief, for being here, and
Thank you very much.
look forward to getting that check off for Special Olympics.
Thank you. I'll let them know. Great.
Nancy has it. I don't know, do you want to hand deliver it or just mail it or what works?
What is man?
You're welcome to stay there. But don't feel so you have to.
That's what happens was.
Okay, council committee representative reports. We've all met, and I'll just start off by saying that on October 4th, Finance and Operations met. We reviewed our meeting schedule and we adjusted some of the holiday items that we have on our schedule that we are going to either abbreviate meetings or not meet. We agreed to make an adjustment on the fourth Monday, is it?
First
Monday.
First
Well, the
Monday
Monday,
we go to 6.
Yeah.
yeah, the Monday that Laura has a
Thank
commitment.
you.
We're meeting at 6 o'clock on that particular Monday, which she'll be able to join us. We talked about carry forward from last year's budget into this year for the road striping. We did utilization of professional development reserve. We discussed that. And we discussed the MRC correspondence. And that was our finance and operations. Terry, wanna?
Well, tonight we did UMaine Town Economic Development Project, so we all are familiar with that. We also talked about community events, had an update from Mitch on the fourth quarter. They're looking at multiple events. We talked about delivery meals for signature community dinner. And period of times expanding more for more events and stuff. And if you're following the town website, which I ask people to do, or Facebook, you will notice that they put out boo boxes are going to be a thing. So if you need boo boxes, to please make yourself known. Okay.
Any other reports? Megan, did you have any report?
Yep, at our all committee meeting on the 4th, we also talked about the rental registration ordinance revision. And we set the public hearing for next month for people to give feedback on that ordinance revision. We also talked about homestays, AKA short-term rentals, AKA stuff like Airbnb. We ended up sending that language to the planning board, and then it will eventually make its way back to committee for more discussion. And I think that was it.
Cheryl, anything on the environment?
Yes, we do. So we met on September 22nd. And it wasn't a super long meeting, but we talked about our new charge. We have to bring that at some point to committee. Sophie's been busy with other things. And we also talked about weatherize Orono. We're going to start gearing up for next fall. And we would like the town of Orono to be involved in a project to help our community kind of tighten up for the winter. We've got a Orono build right now for window inserts. It's going to happen November 8th to the 13th, and we're looking for volunteers to help with that. We've been discussing another Maine Recycles Week, which is coming up, which Bell has been instrumental in working with that group of people. And pretty much that's all that we have, that we talked about, but that we have talked about, just projects so far that we're working on to bring weatherization projects to the people of Warren, so that we can save money on fuel and save money on fuel and help people with heating their homes.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay. Lucas, or you want to say something, Sophie?
I just want to make sure that people are aware that Culture Fest is this Saturday from 11 to 3 p.m. on the mall, outside on the mall on campus. It's free, and if you look very carefully at the poster, you'll see that town of Orono is on the poster.
Nice.
And it's always fun, and it's always good.
Okay, future agenda items of concern. Do you have anything there, from council members? I see none. Public petitions. Do we have any public petitions? Public comments. Do we have any public comments? Do we have anybody in the remote region?
No comments from the public online.
Thank you,
Oh,
Bobby.
somebody just raised their hand.
Looks like somebody raised their hand just now.
Yeah, Alice Kelly. I'm going to allow her to talk.
Yep.
Alice, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I just wanted to bring to the council's attention the issue of the livable neighborhoods. I know this came up at the last meeting and some members of the Webster neighborhood spoke, and the council listened attentively, but we had the sense that things weren't really going to progress along this topic. And I'd just like to keep it front and center, perhaps something for a future concern, that the community policing has gone well, but is not addressing all our problems. And I think perhaps a workshop or a meeting focused on this issue would be a great idea in bringing the council and the neighborhood and the landlords who are associated with it. And I say this as a resident and a landlord. So just to bring it to your attention that we are still here and we are still concerned.
Anybody else, Abby?
I do not see any other hands.
Thank you. Okay, then I think we are at the end of our agenda, at the end of our meeting. So I am ready for a motion to adjourn, unless you have any further updates for us.
I just want to remind folks that next Monday, our meeting is at 6 o'clock because it's a joint workshop with the VZ Town Council. We have invited 2 groups of people, individuals or groups. I said, bring as many people as you want. You have 10 to 15 minutes to talk with council. So we have 2 groups that are going to be presenting information on fluoridation of the public water supply. We have also issued invitations to the Orono VZ Water District to join us. My understanding is that the superintendent and perhaps members of the Board of Trustees will join us. I think it's going to be an interesting meeting. It starts at 6. There aren't going to be decisions because it's a workshop. Each of the councils have to go back to their respective communities and make formal decisions. But I'm hoping that you'll be able to chat amongst yourselves and at least identify informal steps forward.
Thank you, Sophie. Now I'm ready for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, raise your hand.
Yay.
Yeah, we got everybody, 7-0. Thank you all very much. We'll see you on next Monday.